The void was silent, absolute, an endless expanse punctuated only by the distant shimmer of stars and the faint, almost imperceptible hum of anticipation that thrummed through the Korth flagship. Every sensor, every analytical instrument aboard the fleet's command bridge had predicted hundreds of human warships, a conventional armada ready for destruction. The calculations were flawless, the strategies meticulous. Victory was assured. Yet, as the sensors flickered and confirmed reality, dread slithered through the ranks. Only one ship emerged from slipspace. One. A solitary, sleek vessel, its dark hull refracting starlight as if absorbing it into some secret, unknowable depth. The bridge officers froze. The air, mechanically circulated, artificially conditioned, felt suddenly thin, charged with unease. Tentacles of fear curled in the chests of admirals and captains alike. The alien narrator observed with a mixture of horror and awe. Every line of the human ship's hull seemed alive, shimmering with currents of energy that defied conventional physics. Ripples spread through the nearby void, subtle distortions that suggested forces the Korth had never catalogued. The humans did not rush. They did not hesitate. They drifted forward with a deliberate, almost mocking serenity, each movement measured, each approach a silent declaration of mastery. Officers exchanged nervous glances, whispers of disbelief muttering through the ranks. The ship's size was unassuming, yet the aura it radiated seemed disproportionate, an unquantifiable power that unsettled even the most disciplined of Korth minds. The narrator felt it then, the moment the pretense of control dissolved. The human strength was not in numbers, not in overwhelming firepower. It was in audacity, in unpredictability, in a brilliance that made centuries of Korth doctrine look fragile and brittle. Sensors pulsed, scanning, recalculating. Every strike pattern, every tactical projection faltered. The fleet's confidence began to crumble, replaced by a raw, primal fear. And yet, intertwined with that fear, awe blossomed. The humans were not merely opponents. They were something entirely different. A singularity of intent, a force that could not be reasoned with, only observed and endured. The ship glided closer, each meter of its approach a silent mockery of the Korth's preparedness. The bridge officers stiffened. Orders went unspoken. Hesitations multiplied. The narrator's gaze lingered, entranced, as the humans' quiet dominance became undeniable. The singular vessel advanced, and the void seemed to bend around it, aware of its passage, acknowledging its presence. And then it happened. The ship adjusted its vector with a precision that made calculations fail, a subtle shimmer passing over its hull like liquid metal in motion. The Korth fleet shuddered collectively. It was not a threat yet, not in the conventional sense, but a promise, a warning. The humans were coming, and everything the aliens thought they knew about war, about power, about certainty, was about to be shattered. The dread on the bridge deepened. Eyes widened. Algorithms buzzed frantically. The narrator whispered to the void itself, a confession of awe and fear intertwined. This is no ordinary ship. This is humanity. The singular vessel drew nearer, and the stars seemed to bend in deference. The first volley of confrontation was imminent, yet even that would not be enough to predict what the humans would do next. The Korth fleet unleashed its fury. Energy beams tore through the void, cascading in vibrant arcs of green and violet, each shot designed to obliterate the lone human vessel. The bridge of the flagship hummed with the intensity of command, alarming, precise, confident. Yet, with every volley fired, the humans moved in ways the Korth could neither predict nor understand. The alien narrator's gaze followed the vessel, fascination laced with a deepening terror. The ship twisted and shifted through the currents of space like liquid, shields flaring in response to each assault. Patterns emerged and vanished, fleeting and erratic, yet each maneuver was flawless. It was improvisation perfected into art, chaos refined into absolute control. Every action the humans took seemed spontaneous, yet executed with a precision that unraveled the Korth's most sophisticated strategies. admirals barked orders, their confidence cracking under the weight of unpredictability. Calculations, probabilities, simulations all failed. Each defensive formation collapsed in seconds, reorganizing too slowly to matter. The humans did not merely evade, they dictated the flow of battle, bending the battlefield to their will. The alien narrator could feel the fear seeping into the bones of the crew. Something profound was at play, beyond tactics or weaponry. It was a force of will, unyielding and instinctive, radiating from the ship like a living presence in the void. Whispers rippled through the ranks, subtle, almost imperceptible, yet laden with doubt. Questions of protocol and tradition rose like tremors before an earthquake. The humans' defiance unsettled rigid hierarchies, sowed chaos in minds accustomed to obedience, and revealed vulnerabilities, not in technology, but in belief. The Korth had long thought that control over space, numbers, and firepower equated to supremacy. Yet here, against this solitary vessel, their mastery proved inadequate. The narrator studied the humans closely, eyes widening with a mixture of admiration and envy. Each calculated maneuver, sidestepping a torrent of plasma fire, exploiting gravitational eddies, countering energy arcs with seemingly instinctive decisions, displayed a genius the Korth could not quantify. It was not the precision of machines. It was the spark of creativity, raw and alive, coursing through the humans' actions. Fear mingled with awe. This was not a battle. It was a revelation. Even the void itself seemed to respond, bending subtly around the vessel's trajectory, as though space acknowledged the human ship's authority. The Korth sensors, built to calculate and predict, struggled to interpret the patterns unfolding before them. Data feeds overloaded, AI projections fragmented into errors. The human was not merely surviving, it was commanding, orchestrating, reshaping reality with effortless audacity. The alien narrator felt a shiver of clarity. Humans were more than combatants. They were phenomena, entities that could transform desperation into dominance with nothing more than instinct, courage, and an irrepressible will. And yet, despite the growing terror, a perverse fascination took root. These beings, outnumbered 1,000 to 1, moved through space with elegance, brilliance, and terrifying unpredictability. Admirals shouted, orders collided, commands overlapped, ships collided with the chaos of their own mistakes. The fleet, once confident, now responded instead of acted. The humans dictated to rhythm of combat, their movements both impossible and inevitable, and the narrator realized the singular truth the Korth could not face. Numbers, firepower, doctrine, all were meaningless in the face of the human spirit. As the human ship glided between volleys, sidestepping with effortless grace, the alien narrator whispered to the void, "They are rewriting the rules, not through strength alone, but through something far older, far fiercer, will." A sudden shift in trajectory caught the entire fleet off guard. Sensors screamed, alarms blared, and even the most experienced Korth officers faltered. The human ship had vanished from expected coordinates, only to appear moments later in a position impossible to reconcile with any known physics. The narrator leaned forward, heart pulsing with awe and fear. Humanity's defiance had reached another level, and the battle was only beginning. The bridge lights flickered as another barrage of Korth energy pulses tore through the void. Yet the humans moved like a living contradiction, delicate yet indomitable, ephemeral yet terrifyingly precise. The alien narrator leaned closer to the observation viewport, unblinking, heart thrumming with a mixture of fear and fascination. Every maneuver, every subtle adjustment of trajectory was a statement, a declaration of intellect, defiance, and mastery that dwarfed centuries of Korth military doctrine. Sensors screamed incoherently. Algorithms that had never failed quivered under the strain of human improvisation. AI-driven predictions, once flawless, fragmented into incoherence. A concentrated plasma pulse narrowly missed a flank, but the human vessel had anticipated even this, pivoting in a way that exploited the Korth fleet's overconfidence. Every mistake the aliens made was instantly turned into opportunity, and every advantage they thought they held slipped like water through their grasping claws. The narrator's mind struggled to parse what was unfolding. Humans did not merely react, they adapted, invented, and improvised with a fluidity that felt almost instinctual, as though the currents of survival themselves flowed through them. Each flare, each sudden vector change was a proof of ingenuity honed over millennia, a survival instinct sharpened by countless trials, both on planetary battlegrounds and within the cold expanse of space. Whispers began to ripple among the Korth officers. Even the most stoic, seasoned warriors could not hide their unease.
Doctrines that had shaped civilizations now seemed fragile, trivial, and obsolete. One officer muttered about patterns, about probabilities, but the narrator knew, with a sinking awe, that no pattern could encompass human cunning. Their very existence was a defiance of expectation, a force that bends perception and shatters assumptions.
The narrator tracked the ship as it darted between volleys, its hull absorbing and redirecting energy in ways that seemed almost conscious, as though the vessel itself were alive with intention. Each moment the humans survived, each strike they countered, was a psychological blow to the Korth fleet. Morale wavered, command hierarchies trembled. The numerical superiority of the aliens counted for nothing against this singular, extraordinary mind operating in harmony with machine and instinct alike. Even the void seemed to bend subtly around the humans' path. Space itself obeyed their rhythm, as if acknowledging the audacity of a species that turned adversity into triumph without hesitation. The narrator's awe deepened into a visceral, almost spiritual recognition. These humans were not bound by conventional rules of engagement. They were architects of reality in miniature, rewriting combat with every decision. A sudden flaring maneuver caused several alien vessels to collide, their formations collapsing like dominoes. Screams of alarm echoed through the fleet. The narrator felt a shiver crawl up its exoskeleton. Humans were not merely surviving, they were reshaping the battlefield, turning chaos into artistry and making every alien tactical advantage irrelevant. And yet, within the fear and confusion, there was a strange, reverent admiration. The narrator realized that what they were witnessing was beyond mere strategy. It was a manifestation of human essence itself, ingenuity, creativity, and the indomitable will to survive and dominate against impossible odds. Then, without warning, the human vessel vanished from sensor readings for a heartbeat. Panic flared across the Korth bridge. Every officer's mind raced. Every calculation failed. And in that suspended moment, the narrator whispered to the void, "They are not constrained by physics. They are not bound by expectation. They are inevitable." The void trembled under the pulse of battle. Explosions rippled across the Korth fleet like violent stars collapsing, streaks of plasma tearing holes in formations once considered unassailable. From the alien narrator's vantage, the chaos was breathtaking, horrifying, and incomprehensibly precise. The singular human ship no longer simply evaded, it dictated. Every volley of energy, every maneuvered strike of alien firepower, funneled neatly into traps laid with preternatural foresight. The humans anticipated the attack patterns before they were even conceived. On the flagship bridge, officers' mandibles clicked nervously, sensors overloading with the sheer unpredictability of a mind they could not hope to comprehend. A formation of cruisers swerved in unison, only to find themselves herded into a narrow corridor where concentrated plasma fire shredded the lead ships, the rest staggering in a cascade of collisions and explosions. Confidence shattered like brittle glass. Commands were shouted, rerouted, ignored. The human ship operated outside their understanding, beyond the scope of doctrine or anticipation. The narrator's eyes followed the humans with a mixture of awe and despair. Each move seemed simultaneously instinctive and engineered, as though their knowledge of physics, energy flow, and tactical engagement exceeded the combined calculations of the Korth fleet's AI and strategists. Shields shimmered and redirected attacks almost before the enemy fired. Weapons transformed mid-flight to exploit gaps in alien defenses, and energy pulses converged to cut channels through the most formidable formations. Humanity's creativity was not mere improvisation, it was instantaneous invention, a cognitive storm of pure ingenuity. One by one, alien vessels fell, their destruction precise and theatrical. Explosions painted the void with green and violet fire, casting eerie shadows on the surviving ships. Officers screamed over failing comlinks. Patterns of movement disintegrated under the humans' control. The fleet's confidence, which had been absolute mere moments ago, now lay in ruins, replaced by fear, awe, and the uncomfortable realization that their rules of engagement were meaningless. The human ship moved with relentless authority. Every evasion, every counterattack was executed with a mastery that made the aliens' technology seem archaic. They twisted space, exploited gravitational anomalies, and turned the energy of destruction into instruments of their own design. The narrator felt a deep, visceral respect, tinged with despair. These beings, alone against 1,000, were reshaping the battle in real time.
Humanity was not merely surviving, it was asserting dominance in a symphony of destruction and ingenuity. The narrator traced the path of another cluster of Korth destroyers, moving in formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. In a heartbeat, their vectors shifted inexplicably. Plasma arcs collided mid-space, creating cascading explosions that sent debris scattering across the void.
Officers recoiled. The bridge of the flagship hummed with alarms and diagnostic failures. Humanity's single vessel had transformed disadvantage into a lethal opportunity, exploiting every misstep, every hesitation, every predictable calculation. There was a moment, a pause in the chaos, where the narrator could see, almost clearly, the psychological hold the humans had over the aliens. They did not merely attack, they commanded attention, demanded awe, forced surrender before a single shot even struck. The Korth, once confident and proud, now hesitated, second-guessed, faltered. Their every decision became reactive, defensive, chaotic. The humans shaped reality with motion, with will, with an artistry that defied all previous notions of warfare. Even as explosions tore the void apart, the human ship remained pristine, unscarred, a singular point of serene authority in the maelstrom. Every movement echoed not survival, but supremacy. The narrator whispered to the emptiness around them, "These beings, they do not fight by our rules, they define them." Then, without warning, the human vessel executed a maneuver so impossible that sensors blinked in confusion. Entire squadrons found themselves funneled into ambushes before they could react. The narrator's pulse quickened. The realization was absolute. The battle had shifted. The humans were no longer participants. They were arbiters. The rules, the doctrine, the entire flow of combat bent around a single audacious will. And yet, just as the fleet teetered on the brink of collapse, a distant shimmer in the void hinted at the next move. Something so calculated, so unanticipated, that the narrator's breath caught in awe and fear. Humanity was not done. The turning point was only the beginning. The Korth fleet was fracturing. Squadrons faltered, formations collapsed, and the once pristine lines of command devolved into chaos. The singular human vessel moved through the void with unerring precision, each maneuver orchestrated with the elegance of a predator and the brilliance of a mind unconstrained by convention. From the bridge, the alien narrator could only watch in mounting terror and awe. Admirals bellowed orders, yet their commands collided, contradicted, and fell into silence. Their carefully constructed doctrines, their centuries of training and strategy, were meaningless against a being that could rewrite the flow of combat with a single maneuver. Panic spread like a virus, a cold, creeping dread that gnawed at confidence and morale. The humans' audacity was not mere courage, it was elemental, a force that shaped reality itself, bending space, energy, and instinct to their will. The narrator observed the humans as if seeing them for the first time. Each pulse of light from their shields, each precise twist of their trajectory, spoke of qualities alien minds could barely fathom. Calm calculation in the face of impossible odds, courage tempered by intelligence, unpredictability married to instinctive mastery. Even in the chaos, there was no hesitation, no fear, only an unshakable certainty that they would endure and dominate. One by one, Korth ships exploded in shimmering bursts of plasma and fire, their debris spinning into the void. The fleet's cohesion, once unbreakable, now lay in tatters. Officers whispered of surrender, of retreat, but the humans pressed forward, relentless and deliberate. Every action reinforced the same inescapable truth. This was not a conventional engagement. Humanity did not merely survive, they commanded, they inspired, and they redefined the battlefield with audacious clarity. The narrator felt an unfamiliar sensation rising. Reverence. These were not just adversaries, they were titans, elemental forces challenging everything the Korth had assumed about warfare, power, and dominance. Fear intertwined with admiration, and for the first time, the narrator recognized the true nature of human resilience, an almost sacred combination of intellect, courage, and an indomitable will. The void around the human vessel seemed alive with their presence. Energy flares pulsed, ripples of gravitational distortion spread, and every movement radiated control and intent.
In witnessing this, the narrator understood that legends were being forged before their eyes, humans whose courage and brilliance would echo across galaxies, whose audacity would be whispered by alien civilizations as both warning and awe-inspiring myth. Yet even in this awe, the Korth could not anticipate the next move. The human ship shifted, appearing where none expected, exploiting yet another weakness in the fleet's scrambling defenses. Sensors screamed, warnings blared, officers stumbled over calculations, but there was no error in the human strategy. Every action, every counter was deliberate. The narrator whispered to the void, "These are not merely combatants. They are inevitability made flesh."
And in that moment, as another cluster of Korth vessels was obliterated with clinical precision, a sense of helpless admiration took root. The human had become more than a ship, more than a force. It had become an icon, a singular embodiment of ingenuity and courage. The Korth fleet's collapse was inevitable, and the narrator realized with both awe and despair that the galaxy would remember this day, not for the firepower lost, but for the audacity of humanity. Yet in the midst of chaos, the human vessel moved with calm certainty, vanishing into a sudden rift in space before reappearing behind the stunned fleet. The narrator leaned forward, heart thundering in alien rhythm. The human vessel drifted through the void, scarred yet unbowed. Hull plating shimmered with the echoes of near-fatal impacts, plasma burns tracing jagged paths across its surface. Yet inside, the crew moved with precision and calm, every action synchronized, every calculation executed without hesitation. From the alien narrator's vantage, it was nothing short of miraculous. Despite catastrophic damage, the humans maintained perfect control, orchestrating attacks and defenses with a clarity that seemed almost telepathic. The Korth fleet faltered again, their confidence eroding like sand through claws. Every volley they fired, every attempt to flank or corner was anticipated, countered, or absorbed with deadly efficiency. The alien narrator scanned the ship's movements, tracing patterns that made no logical sense. Each maneuver seemed reckless to the alien mind, darting through impossible angles, exploiting gravitational anomalies, diverting energy flows in real time, but the results were devastatingly effective. Ships that had been counted as secure fell one by one, and yet the human ship remained intact, a singular point of invincibility amid ruin. Fear and envy warred in the narrator's mind. These beings were not merely tactical geniuses. They were something more profound. Their resilience was existential. They fought not simply to survive, but to assert dominance, to shape the battle itself, and to define the terms of engagement on their own audacious terms. Every decision reflected a clarity of purpose that the Korth had never encountered, an almost spiritual will, relentless, unyielding, and uncompromising. The alien admirals shouted and gestured, but their commands collided in confusion. Confidence was gone, authority fractured. Their numerical superiority, their intricate formations, their centuries of warfare experience, all meaningless before the singular audacity of the humans. The narrator felt the weight of centuries of doctrine crumbling into insignificance. Humanity's resolve was rewriting the rules of combat in real time, forcing the aliens to witness the impossible. The vessel executed a sudden vector change, appearing where no prediction had placed it, evading concentrated fire and simultaneously striking at an exposed cruiser. The explosion lit the void in brilliant green and violet, a visual testament to human ingenuity. Observers whispered in disbelief. Even AI sensors faltered, unable to quantify or rationalize the patterns they recorded. And yet, the human ship continued with the same composed rhythm, unhurried and precise, like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. The narrator's awe deepened. Humanity was no longer just a species. It was a force, elemental and unstoppable. Their will shaped the battlefield. Their courage bent reality. The Korth could only react, their doctrines unraveling with every human maneuver. Every loss, every miscalculation amplified the human's dominance. What had begun as an engagement of numbers and strategy had become a confrontation with inevitability itself.
A sudden flare of energy caught several alien vessels in a lethal crossfire, and the narrator's gaze lingered on the human ship, effortlessly orchestrating the devastation. The precision was impossible, the timing flawless, the ingenuity boundless. And yet, there was no arrogance, no hesitation, only calm, unrelenting resolve. The narrator understood, with a mixture of awe and despair, that they were witnessing the birth of a legend. Humanity had emerged from what should have been annihilation, not merely intact, but triumphant, rewriting the very notion of what it meant to fight, to endure, and to prevail. Then, with a subtle shift in trajectory, the human ship vanished from sight, only to reappear behind the stunned fleet. Alarms screamed, calculations failed, the Korth officers froze, paralyzed by the realization the humans controlled not only the battle, but perception itself. The narrator whispered to the void, voice trembling, "They do not just survive, they dominate, they define reality." And in that silence before the next wave of chaos, a single, undeniable truth crystallized. Humanity's resolve was unbound, and the Korth were powerless to stop it.
The void was a graveyard of shattered ships. The Korth fleet, once proud and disciplined, lay in ruin, twisted fragments of metal and fire drifting silently through the dark expanse. The alien narrator hovered above the wreckage in stunned silence, sensors and eyes alike overwhelmed by the scale of devastation. Pride had been shattered, doctrines rendered meaningless, strategies reduced to whispers of futility, and through it all moved the singular human vessel, unscathed, luminous, and commanding. Every maneuver it executed was a masterstroke. The narrator traced its path with awe and disbelief, twisting through the remnants of destroyed cruisers, sidestepping bursts of energy that had obliterated entire formations moments ago, and directing counterattacks with an elegance that defied every expectation. This was no longer battle, it was artistry, a choreography of death and precision, orchestrated by a mind that bent the battlefield to its will. Each strike, each evasive arc, each calculated risk radiated courage, ingenuity, and absolute mastery. The Korth officers, scattered and broken, could do nothing but watch. Their fear, once raw and instinctive, had matured into something else, reverence. Even in defeat, they sensed the greatness before them, a force that transcended numbers, tactics, and conventional understanding. Humanity, in its audacity and brilliance, had proven that survival was merely the first step, supremacy was its birthright. The narrator reflected inwardly, struggling to comprehend the scale of human achievement. These beings, alone against 1,000, had rewritten the rules of engagement. Their intelligence, creativity, and resilience had fused into a singular force, a presence that dominated the void itself. Humans were more than warriors, they were architects of reality, bending physics, probability, and expectation with sheer audacity. Every alien mind that witnessed it felt small, inadequate, and humbled. A massive cruiser, thought invulnerable, exploded in a cascade of green and violet fire, its remnants spiraling outward, illuminated by the faint glint of the human ship's shields. The singular vessel pivoted, anticipating every countermeasure before it even existed. The narrator marveled at the subtle genius embedded in every maneuver, the human's ability to convert disadvantage into opportunity, to exploit every weakness, to turn chaos into order. There was no hesitation, no fear, only an unyielding will, a calm clarity in the face of annihilation. Through the wreckage, alien vessels drifted aimlessly, their sensors searching for patterns that were no longer there. But the humans required no patterns, they created them. The narrator whispered to the void, voice thick with awe. These are not merely survivors, they are inevitability incarnate. The final moments of the battle unfolded like a symphony of devastation and brilliance. The human vessel executed a maneuver so audacious, so impossibly precise, that even the most experienced Korth officers froze. Entire squadrons found themselves flanked, funneled into ambushes, and destroyed with surgical efficiency. The narrator watched, captivated, as one last cluster of alien ships erupted in flames, their proud hulls torn asunder. It was the culmination of human ingenuity, courage, and relentless will, a display that would echo through the void for centuries to come. And then, as suddenly as it had dominated, the human vessel shifted. It accelerated, slipping past the remnants of the fleet, a streak of light against the backdrop of shattered stars. The aliens could only stare, awestruck, as the ship vanished into the void, leaving silence, emptiness, and a legend in its wake. The narrator reflected on what had been witnessed. Humans did not merely fight, they redefined what it meant to be powerful, capable, and exceptional. They turned fear into reverence, chaos into mastery, and near-certain annihilation into triumph. The lessons would ripple through the galaxy: fear of the unknown, respect for audacity, and recognition of a species whose will could bend even the vastness of space. Legends would remember this day, not as a tale of numbers, technology, or brute force, but as a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Even in distant systems, among alien civilizations, whispers would carry the story of the singular ship, a lone human force that shattered fleets, overturned doctrines, and carved humanity's name into the annals of cosmic awe. And in the endless silence that followed, the narrator's final thought lingered, trembling with reverence and wonder. They came alone, and yet they were enough. Humanity has emerged not merely victorious, but immortal in legend.